program of social cost and liability. So every once in a while, when I come into school on Monday morning, I hear about a house party that's happening in Winchester on a Saturday night or a Friday night. And usually it's the same situation. Usually I get it in a police report that the police have been on the scene, or the rumors are flying about a party that happened here this weekend. But it's usually something that started small but exploded, and you might have 50, 60, 70, 80 kids at a house, with a lot of alcohol. Sometimes the houses get, things are ruined and destroyed. So every three years, we want to do a program like this. Those situations are completely not safe for our students, and we want to keep them safe at all times. But the point of the program tonight is that it can also be a liability issue for you. So we have three speakers tonight. First, Danny Karnick's going to talk about what our kids are doing in Winchester. Then we're going to hear from Brandon Harbour, a lawyer from Campbell and Campbell, and he'll go through the social host laws and the liability issues. And then we're going to hear from Assistant Middlesex District Attorney Larry Petchin. So first up, Dan Karnick.
Hi folks, how's everybody? I know Dr. Gwynn was up top, and I know that Brandon does his presentation with the microphone and the slides and things, but is it all right if I get down in person with everybody? Yes. Good. If you don't know who I am, I'm Dan Karnick. I'm a sergeant with the Winchester Police Department. I was a school resource officer for 7 years here at the high school and the middle school, and I'm pleased to have with us also Steve Palmer, who's your school resource officer. He's in the back. He is here as a great resource to you, to the students, to the administration, to the staff. We built a great program through the Substance Abuse Coalition at the time, which is now the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community. And back 7 years ago, we tried to touch the students and touch parents as often as we could about this very important piece that our adolescents go through, and give you the tools that you need to help you out. So it's a very important program. We showed this program many, many times earlier, and as Dr. Gwynn indicated, we're trying to touch now every several years to get parents to talk about it. We did it once at the 8th grade level, and we're going to look at doing that again. So the 8th grade parents, freshmen coming in, they'll have this also. The junior class just recently had the presentation, and I see a couple of students that were here that sat in it, and they brought mom and brought people back to the presentation this evening. So I'm going to wear two hats. I'm going to talk for about 6 or 7 minutes. Dr. Gwynn's going to pull me off if we get going too long because we know it's been a long day. 30-minute presentation, and then the district attorney's going to chat and fill in some of the voids here. My role as a supervisor today is to supervise police officers out on the road. My experience as a school resource officer gave me great experience, knowledge, working with the students, working with the parents, working with neighbors, working with the community business people, and the administration. As Dr. Gwynn said, we can bring in reports on Monday. But years ago, it was not only on Mondays, it would be on Wednesdays or Thursdays if something happened that evening or school vacation week. And now with the spring coming upon us, it's a very, very difficult time because we have so many different things that are coming up in the spring. And the students have been working hard all year, and now we've got the prom, we've got a junior semi-formal coming up, we have the anchor coming up, we have town day, we have, and I could keep going on and on, the senior luau, senior week, and all the activities. So this is a perfect time to have you folks in, and we're going to ask you to spread the word to the parents that aren't here. And also I see Kevin's up back filming this for WinCam also. We're hoping to show this so the parents that couldn't be here this evening, they'll be able to hear it. So the things that I'm seeing right now out on the road, from what happened a few years back, working with Liz Silva, Doc Butler, and the whole coalition team, and Dr. Gwynn, the educators, the police, the hospitals, everybody, we're able to reduce the use of alcohol for a number of years. We had an issue years ago. That's what brought us back to the tent back here to Winchester to do our senior prom. Since then, we've done such a positive job with it that we're able to slow it down. We're never going to stop it. And we were able to start to reverse it a little bit. So we have older children that came through the program where you talk with other folks. We did a pretty good job. And that was reinforced by the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that we did over and over every 2 years. And it showed that we started to plateau out the issue around alcohol use and abuse among our young people here in Winchester. We made them see and realize how important it is, not only for their safety and well-being, but academically, athletically and legally by bringing Campbell and Campbell in to not only speak to the parents, but to speak to the students, especially the junior class, senior class, to make them realize it could be a criminal problem, deal with the police and the district attorney's office, and they could go along with them for the rest of their life, because at 17 years of age, they are an adult in the eyes of the court. But civilly, it could be not only something that's resolved within 6 months or so in a criminal proceeding, but a civil proceeding, as you'll see tonight, could go on for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And you're going to hear about the money that it's going to cost and the turmoil that costs families for saying and having that moment of weakness to say, yes, we'll have things over, we'll have fire. Years ago, we were able to slow things down. Did it ever stop? Nope. But we were able to slow it down. We were able to bring the hot spots to the parents during PFA meetings. We were able to show them where in the Fells, where up at Whipple Hill, where here, where there. We talked about home invasions, which were upperclassmen would find out, text. And next thing you know, there'd be a half gallon of Captain Morgan, a couple of 30 packs coming into somebody's home, specifically our freshman years ago. When mom and dad would run out for dinner, next thing you know, you have 30 kids like that in the house. Next thing you know, the kids didn't know how to handle it. So we spoke to them, and we're going to reinforce, and I'm going to reinforce with you to tell them to please call you, to please call a neighbor, to please call the police department. Because if you do it at 7:30 and not wait until 10 o'clock when the house is in shambles, half of your belongings are gone, they've used your closets to do whatever, okay? Use your bedrooms to do whatever, because again, it happens when it's group mentality, and then we get called, and then we end up taking the person to the system. And then, if one of those young people leave, get in an accident, you're going to hear about that this evening, what could happen, criminally and civilly too. So years ago, we were able to slow things down. We had kids talking, we had them communicating. They'd see the SRO out on the road on Friday and Saturday night. They'd text each other. They'd say, hey, Mr. Pernick's out, Mr. Russo's out, Mr. Palmer's out. And we were able to slow it down. And we were able to do a pretty good job of leveling it out. Recently, though, this past year, I'm starting to see it show its ugly head again. There's been a lot of parents who tried to do the right thing by hosting parties without alcohol, actually hiring security or checking bag because they want to keep it safe and they want to do the right thing. But our young people are very smart and they have different ways to deal with things. So we're starting to see it rear itself again. It's always been there, but now it's starting to really spike back up again. And I could cite a number of cases. Dr. Gwynn said we're starting to bring more reports in. We're starting to deal with more of our young people in the town. And that's something we don't want to do. Just to reinforce Chief Abatelli, he sends his best, and he just wants to reinforce that we do have a zero tolerance policy here in the town of Winchester around alcohol and other illegal substances. So anybody under the age of 21 that's in possession of alcohol will either be summoned or arrested. And that's it. And if you're summoned to court, you go before a clerk magistrate, they have a hearing, we deal with it appropriately, and we try to do some diversion if we can. If it's not a very complex case, we try to help folks out the first time. It doesn't happen all the time, but we try to make it a teachable moment for everybody. If it's a person placed under arrest, again, when they fill out college applications and job applications, have you ever been arrested? Unfortunately, they're going to have to put yes and explain that. Have you ever been convicted of a crime? Those are two things you need to worry about. You're going to hear more about that in the presentation in a few minutes. So those are some of the things that I want to just touch base. I'm going to go through my notes here because I want to make sure that I have it. Zero tolerance, 21 and younger, if they're in possession of alcohol. So please do us a favor, clear your cards out. Sometimes you go to the transfer station, sometimes this, that, all the rest of it. We hear from people, oh, that was my dad's, it was left in the car. Guess what? Please make sure. And same thing that we tell the students. Make sure before you get into a car or your kids get in this car that you're not carrying the alcohol. Because that one person that has it, or if that person has it in the car, there's a good chance that they'll all be held responsible for being in a closed compartment and having alcohol in the car. Okay? Possession of alcohol, which you'll hear in a couple of minutes, is that we look for somebody that's actually in possession, that they're holding, that they're carrying on their person or whatever, and that's what we need. Okay? So that's for the alcohol piece. For the drugs, marijuana, you're going to hear about marijuana from me in just a moment through our clinical counselor. She couldn't be with us this evening, so I'm going to touch on a couple of points that she wanted to share. But the marijuana piece is big, the alcohol piece is big, and again, the police department has a zero tolerance policy on alcohol, 21 and younger, and any illegal substances. Okay, and is everybody aware that the marijuana is less, if the student or the youth has less than 1 ounce of marijuana on them, and it's packaged for personal use, they're issued a civil citation, a bylaw. It's a $100 fine, and if they're under 18, there's a letter that goes home to the parent, and they're supposed to perform 10 hours of community service and perform 4 hours of a substance abuse class under 18. That's the process. People say, well, it's not criminal. Marijuana is not criminal. No, it's a civil citation at this time. Anything that's packaged, even if a decision just came down, Larry might touch on it, decision just came down, even if it's under an ounce, it's packaged in small baggies, they'll still be charged with a felony, which is possession with intent to distribute illegally. So just know the difference between the two. Okay? Spring events we talked about, that was the hot spot. You'll see myself and Officer Palmer in the next coming week stop up off the Hillcrest Parkway. We go down to the spot of water. If anybody like to walk their dogs, go up and take Hillcrest Parkway down and in and see where the lock is. It's a beautiful view. The other piece is off of where the water treatment plant is. There's another spot up on the hill behind the swamp there. And we have a lot of parents and a lot of people walk their dogs and say, look, please do something. There's a lot of cans, there's a lot of things up there. Okay, we're not here to hurt people or to ruin people's future careers, but guess what? Be a parent, not a pal. We need to enforce, and we need to speak to our kids in just a minute. Consistency is huge, communication is huge. The 4 E's, education, which we're doing this evening, elimination, education, encouragement. We want to encourage our youth. That's why you have a school resource officer, you have great administration, clinical social worker, and all these folks. Education, encouragement, elimination, do programs like this to get up in the fells, be proactive, be positive, go to homes, try to alleviate something. If Stephen gets a call on a Friday hearing, there's going to be a big party, he'll pick up the phone and call a parent, or knock on the door, trying to prevent something from happening. And then the last piece is enforcement. And that's the last thing we want to do, but we need to do it with zero tolerance policy. Okay, because we do want to save lives. Shafia Ciccarelli was not able to make it tonight. She lost her voice and she was ill today. So she pulled together some things that she was going to talk about, and I'm just going to spend about 2 minutes on her slides. She's a social worker, a clinical counselor that meets with students here at the school. And she meets with a broad range from freshmen to seniors. And some of the things that she's seeing is she's talking about adolescent substance use continuum, the experimentation, the one-timers that try, the abuse, the ones that continue to try or even do heavy drinking in a short, binge drinking in a short period of time, and then the compulsive use and the addiction. So she sees it all with students here. She also reports that students, in their eyes, this is them reporting to her, that they report that everyone drinks. That's the thought, everyone drinks. As we know statistically, and we look back at the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, about 50-51% of our students are drinking by what they indicate. Not everybody, but she's indicating that possibly the schools are thinking that 60%, about 60% of the students here. So that's their perception, which is important, because if it's the student's perception, we should be aware of that. And then also they consider it a very social thing. It's not a big deal. It's social, we do it. And I think that reflects too among us as adults, realizing that we take a responsibility that when we socially go out, and our kids are with us at hockey tournaments or events or family events and all the rest of it, that we travel and go and do things, that we're role models for those folks. So across all social strata, she indicates cliques, academic levels, grade levels. That's what all the students are reporting, and just giving her some feedback. Students quickly learn when parents are gone or allow alcohol at their home. They know that, they feed on it. She indicated vodka and beer are the primary. I know that Captain Morgan was big a couple years back, but vodka and beer now, and there's reasons for it. Seemingly innocent gatherings in basements, water bottles, that's where the vodka comes in. We're hearing there's an increase of possibly water bottles here coming into school with vodka in it, like a lot of other schools. Increased risk, large quantities in short periods of time, the binge drinking, so they get home and they curfew and everything's perfect and not a problem, and mom won't and dad won't suspect it because I'm under curfew. And then pre-gaming and booze cruising. Pre-gaming is before any event, any sports event, any dance. And Stephen worked some dances, and worked the soccer ball this past year. We had some issues that showed its ugly head. So the kids are even saying this to shopping. Students report, I'm finishing up the last slide here. Students report that they help each other, try to sober them up. They try to use designated drivers, but at times, not always is a designated driver. So even though they're saying they're using designated drivers, a lot of times they'll take the person who's least intoxicated and put them behind the wheel and bring them home. So these are, again, what the students report. And they'll avoid adults and authorities at no cost, the police, medical personnel, and sometimes even parents. I know that I've spoken with a lot of parents who are very open and have been good about please call, no matter what. And I've actually been called by several parents to help out situations being on the road and seeing these, especially over New Year's. We saw a big spike in New Year's with our young people this past year. Use of marijuana, and then less often other drugs, opiates, cocaine, prescription drugs like Adderall, Ritalin, things like that. What she's really seeing is the marijuana piece. Those other pieces are here, but they're not as great as marijuana and alcohol. Some of her recommendations are be aware and be vigilant, awareness that all children may engage in substance use, discuss these issues, adolescents need and want limits, set them please, provide safe options for transportation, coordinate with neighbors, friends, and other parents. So if you're not here or you're away for the night, let's do that. And then finally, utilize resources from the school and the community, and that's what we're all here for this evening. So that's my little piece, Shafi's little piece. Steve and I are going to stay towards the end. So if there's any questions whatsoever, please feel free. You can reach out to Stephen here at the high school Monday through Friday, or call me at the police station. At this time, real quick, tobacco. Steve and I were just talking about the tobacco issue. That's showing its ugly head again. Snuff or dip. The smokeless tobacco, we're seeing a great deal of it being used. Again, MIA rules and administration and reports and things like that. They, again, just dealt with 2 students with it. It's making a mess around the school. It makes a mess here. We know the outcome physically. And so please be vigilant with that. So tobacco, alcohol, other drugs do come under the guidelines here in the school, and also MIA rules for the athletes that are here. Okay? So thank you, and this time I'd like to introduce Brendan Arbor from Campbell and Campbell, one of the attorneys from the law firm.
Thank you very much, and thanks all for coming out here tonight. A little bit about myself and Campbell. Again, my name is Brandon Arbor. The firm is Campbell, Edwards, and Conroy. I'm here to present a little bit about some of the tragic costs and the legal liabilities involved in underage drinking. We don't make our living at Campbell with these types of cases. We represent businesses, we represent institutional clients, but these presentations have become a pro bono effort and a passion of Dick Campbell, who's the founder of the firm, and that has trickled down to us as well, the other attorneys at the firm. So hopefully we can change some destructive behaviors and give some information for all of you here today by sharing some sad stories and some legal knowledge with you. So the first sad story is about Taylor Meyer. That's her. In 2008, Taylor Meyer was a 17-year-old senior at King Philip Regional High School. In November of that year, she went to a Friday night football game and drank alcohol at a couple parties and at the game itself. After the house parties, about 20 to 25 of her and her closest friends went off into the woods at an abandoned Norfolk airport where they continued to drink and they gathered around a bonfire. At some point during the night, Taylor became increasingly inebriated, and she began to stumble away from the group. She said she wanted to go back to the road to call for a ride. When she asked her friends which way to get back to the road, they all laughed and pointed in the wrong direction. Okay. Taylor was supposed to spend the night at a friend's house, so her mother didn't begin looking for her until Saturday afternoon. And this again was Friday night. So she had to return. She couldn't find her. Had to return home that Saturday night to her other kids, put them to bed, not knowing where Taylor was. Okay. Taylor's body was finally found Monday morning by a law enforcement search that included a SWAT team, dogs, and a helicopter. Taylor had drowned in 3 feet of water in a swamp next to the airport. And here's a video of some of her friends discussing that experience.
Taylor Meyer of Plainville was found dead yesterday near Norfolk. Last night, Hundreds gathered at her high school in Rentham to remember the girl.
It was really surreal because you never think it could happen to somebody at your own school.
Around noon Monday, the students got word the body of the 17-year-old Plainville girl was found in a marshy and wooded area at Norfolk Airport. She and her friends were there Friday night for an underage drinking party when she wandered off, telling friends her cousin was on the way to pick her up.
It's really sad. Like, I still can't believe it. It's just like, I don't know, it's crazy.
These students say they've learned a lesson in her death. One decision can change things in the blink of an eye.
Kids always think they're invincible, but really not. People would think this could never happen to them. We probably all thought this would never happen in such like small towns, but it can, and it can happen to anyone, not just Taylor.
So there's a lesson in this, right? Taylor was so drunk she couldn't find her way home. Her friends were so drunk that they laughed and pointed her in the wrong direction, and life was lost. Notice the kids said that they'd learned a lesson, that they realized what happened to Taylor could happen to anyone else. We'll return back to that later. In the meantime, another sad story. Brendan Nerum, age 19, was a Syracuse freshman. In 2003, he spent winter break at his parents' house in Newburyport. His parents went out for the evening, so he had 3 friends over. They drove to a liquor store in New Hampshire and purchased a case of beer. They took it back to Brendan's house, where the friends drank and played drinking games until his mother called. Okay. And she said she was about to come home. So the group were prepared to leave. And as they were leaving, Brendan noticed his friend was about to get in the car and drive. Billy White was intoxicated. He asked Billy not to drive, but Billy got in the driver's seat anyway and hit and killed 16-year-old Trista Zinnick and maimed 17-year-old Neil Bornstein. So Brendan Nerum was charged under the social host law, which is Chapter 138, Section 34, and found guilty and given a jail sentence simply for hosting that party and providing the alcohol. So he pled guilty and was sentenced to a year in the State's House of Correction. So when entering his guilty plea, Nerum admitted responsibility for the tragedy and apologized to the Zinnicks and the Bornstein. Nevertheless, he did receive jail time. So the statute he was charged, the social host law, makes it a crime to furnish alcohol under the age of 21. So in this case, Brendan had purchased the beer that was served at the party, but the way that the statute is worded, it criminalizes simply the act of allowing the party to occur on the property. Okay. Brendan was expecting leniency from the court, and after he was sentenced, he hired a new lawyer to file an appeal. Okay. He claimed that the social host statute was meant to apply to adults supplying alcohol to minors, and not to underage persons buying alcohol for their friends. The Court of Appeals disagreed with that argument and ruled that whoever purchases alcohol means whoever, regardless of the age. The social host laws are not unique to Massachusetts. 13 other states have passed similar laws. Another statute to be aware of, the manslaughter statute. It's essentially one step down from murder and is defined as the unlawful killing of another without malice. So you can be found guilty through reckless conduct as opposed to intentional conduct. And as you can see, the penalties are stepped. It's up to 20 years imprisonment, even for not even intending to kill someone. And this is Alexis Garcia. She was a 15-year-old sophomore member of the volleyball team at East Hampton High School in Massachusetts. On Friday, February 2nd, 2007, she left school at 2 p.m. and went to her friend's house. Her friend's father had bought his daughter a 1.75-liter bottle of vodka for her birthday 2 weeks earlier. The 2 girls drank the entire thing that night. And later in the evening, Alexis went upstairs to take a shower. Her friend found her face down in the bathtub, and she had drowned. Her blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit. Okay, so this is where the manslaughter statute kicks in, right? Timothy Perrin pled guilty to manslaughter for providing alcohol. So this was the first time in Massachusetts someone was charged with manslaughter for actually providing alcohol to a minor. So what is the takeaway here, right? 21 is 21. There are no ifs, ands, or buts under the law. There's no gray area. We see a lot of 19 and 20-year-olds getting into trouble, especially when they're home from college, because they drink at school, come home to their parents' house. But 21 is 21, even if your kids have friends that are 21 or are in college as well. Other problem scenarios are prom, graduation parties. This is the Boston Herald commentary. Where alcohol is either provided or it's just allowed to be consumed on the premises. So the rationale is that drinking is part of the high school experience. Parents think they may have done it in high school. The assumption is everyone has fun, but the reality is that kids don't know how to co-drink and don't respond to drink the same way that adults do, and they drink to get drunk. So leads to tragedies like we're talking about today. Another illustrative case is Victoria Hickman. She was an 18-year-old freshman at York College in Pennsylvania. These are pictures of her posing with her friends. They're from her MySpace page, and that was still popular. In 2006, she died of a massive alcohol overdose. Her friend said, "I just assumed she knew her limit." Apparently she didn't. The friend explained that Hickman had gotten to college late that night and started drinking quickly to try to catch up with her friends. So she had an insane amount of alcohol for a little girl. Her blood alcohol level was 0.33. But this is a typical pattern for underage drinkers that don't know their limits and drink to get drunk, with the goal of getting drunk in a very short amount of time. So her MySpace page, her tagline was "Beer saved my life," which is a danger sign to say the least. Victoria's parents posted a different message on the internet to try to counteract that, perhaps. It should become another statistic. So then. So another statute to be aware of, the drunk driving statute, and of course this applies to adults of age as well. Basically, if you drive drunk and cause serious bodily injury, you can go to receive jail time for the first offense. So the question becomes, what constitutes serious bodily injury? So the courts have held that a mere broken finger is enough to qualify under the statute. Moving on to the Billy Sand case. This is a house in Wayland, the home of Stanley Rosenthal. In 2003, Rosenthal's daughter, Michaela, had a party here while her parents were away. Billy Sand was on the Cape and got a call at around midnight inviting him to his party in Wayland. He drove the whole way over, partied for 3 or 4 hours, got in the car. At 6 o'clock in the morning, State Police Trooper Ellen Engelhardt was sitting in her cruiser in the breakdown lane in Wareham. Son's car, traveling in excess of 90 miles per hour, plowed into hers and pushed her 175 feet. Okay. Billy Sand pled guilty to reckless driving while under the influence. This is him, age 20, as sentencing in Plymouth Superior Court. Billy was sentenced to 2.5 years in Plymouth House of Correction, 5 years probation, 500 hours of community service. Son's family issued a statement saying he accepted responsibility for the accident and decided to begin a healing process for all concerned by pleading guilty. Nevertheless, he did receive jail time. And this is State Trooper Ellen Engelhart for her accident. And this is her at a sentencing hearing for Billy Singh. She's since passed away. The crash fractured a cervical vertebra, her larynx, and her jaw. She lost part of her skull and part of her brain, and remained in a catatonic state. Her daughter filed a $6.2 million lawsuit with Plymouth County Superior Court. Another sad story, Michael Berry, 16 years old, in this picture. He attended a party at one of his classmates' houses, Ashley St. Jean, who apparently held regular Friday night parties while her mother was upstairs watching TV. And the kids said that they were bringing backpacks full of beer, and sometimes the beer would drop out of the backpacks and roll across the floor. But Nancy had her head in the sand and wasn't paying attention, allowed them to have those parties. In December 2003, Michael Berry attended one of those parties. He became drunk, he was asked to leave. He punched out a window on his way out. He didn't find his way home. He bled to death on a neighbor's porch. So Nancy St. Jean was the first to be charged under the social host law, which I discussed earlier. Even though she didn't provide any alcohol to the kids at the party, and she didn't drink with them, she was there. She had control over the house. She allowed the kids to drink, and someone died as a result. So she was sentenced to 6 months in prison and $2,000 fine plus probation. To show how things have changed that much over time, in Andover in 1997, Megan Duggan, age 17, died after a fall down a flight of stairs at another party. Her friend's father, the host, was there at the time. He thought Duggan had passed out from drinking. The kids put a blanket over her and continued to drink. She lay at the bottom of the stairs for 7 hours before an ambulance was called. And then more than 300 empty beer cans were found in Zarella's basement. John Zarella expressed that he just wanted the kids to have a safe place to drink. He was there, he supervised the party, tried to take kids' keys. Obviously, he couldn't pay close enough attention to notice that someone had fallen downstairs. So the district attorney in the case expressed that there is no safe place for kids that age. Same town, North Andover, 2010, Abigail and Gargiola, age 17, Paul Graham's high school junior, was injured in 2010 when she fell down a shorter flight of stairs. This was at a Merrimack College party. Her Facebook page. Multiple members of the Merrimack College football team were charged with furnishing alcohol to a minor, being minors in possession of alcohol themselves, keeping a noisy and disorderly house, and had fake IDs confiscated. Showing that it's not just car accidents, it's not just falling down the stairs, it's fights, right? It's an article about a stabbing in Avon was linked to alcohol. Other consequences, sexual misconduct. The statistics speak for themselves. And this is Elisa Kelly with her sons Brandon and Ryan. Elisa Kelly, this is a case from Virginia, not Massachusetts. But she thought she was doing the right thing when she hosted a party for her sons and their friends. She bought $340 worth of alcohol for them and said that she just wanted them to have a safe place to drink, just like John Zarella. Okay. That was the best way to keep the underage drinkers from drinking and driving. And at that party that she hosted, nobody got hurt, but it was busted. And when the police came and broke up the party, she ran around offering fifth vinegar to try to mask the smell of the alcohol. She was charged under the Virginia state statute for holding that party. And she received 27 months in jail. This was reduced from 8 years. Then the judge was angered from a previous death in the area and decided to send a message. So the takeaway here is not to expect leniency as a matter of course. People have highly charged emotions over these issues. And again, that's 27 months, nobody was even hurt. So this was an interview with Lisa Kelly at the Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail.
It's a good sentence, very hard sentence, but very harsh. I've never even a fucking ticket or anything. I was trying to save them, and I did. That's what happened. But then, I just think, I should be the poster child for everything that, it's amazing to me that there's so many parties still going on. You see it in the paper, you see it everywhere, but nothing's happening. They're not getting prosecuted, nothing's happening.
She said she didn't want to be the poster child. She was identifying kind of an irony that these parties are still going on in the same community. But you just have to understand that that's the way that the courts and our society deals with these things, and not to expect them. So, what other results? Obviously, arrest and conviction leads to a criminal record, which will follow for the rest of your life. Other consequences: common application for college. Questions about criminal violations. Applications to graduate school, professional certifications, goes on and on. The point is to follow. Okay. So, leading to our firm's sort of expertise, other consequences of civil liability. The elements of a civil case, right? What do you need to establish a right to have the state order someone to pay money? You need a duty of care, a breach of care, proximate cause, and damages. So the courts in Massachusetts have decided that providing alcohol to a minor, if that results in an injury, that that injured person can then seek damages from the person who provided the alcohol. Recent Supreme Judicial Court decision of Juliana versus Simpson. In this case, our firm was actually involved in. We took an appeal to the highest court in Massachusetts based on a young lady, Jessica Simpson, hosting a BYOB party at her family home. One of her guests consumed a large amount of alcohol and drove his car or a friend's car into a tree, leading to damages, severe injuries to his girlfriend at the time was sitting in the passenger seat. We brought suit against the young lady who hosted the party. Okay. The Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts said that Jessica Simpson, because she didn't actually provide the alcohol involved, couldn't be held liable for allowing drinking in her home, despite the fact that she could be charged under the criminal statute. So there's a disconnect here between the criminal statutes, which you can be held responsible simply for allowing the party in your home, and the civil case law, which says that you actually have to provide alcohol. Now that's as to someone who is themselves underage. For an adult, allowing the party in their home, that's an open question whether you can be held liable. We think that you probably could. So what hasn't changed after the SJC decision? The criminal law hasn't changed. Hosts of any age may be held liable for providing alcohol to underage signatures, and it remains an open question whether adults of age who provide alcohol to their guests can be liable for damages resulting from that consent. So you have to ask yourself, how much does the party going to cost, right? Some beer, deposits for egg, ice, cups, pizza. All right, how about a civil judgment of $8 million? We didn't pull that number from thin air on, remember the Tristan Zinnick and Neil Bornstein case, Billy Sen. I'm sorry, the Brendan Aaron case. The jury awarded $8.7 million to the Zinnicks and the Bornsteins in their action against Billy White, who drove the car in the Gateway Country Store, which was the liquor store where they got the alcohol. Total damages $8 million. The reality is a joint and several liability. Basically, both defendants are responsible for the full amount. So, if Billy White, can't come up with $8 million as a 20-year-old, we assume he can't, the liquor store is going to be on the hook. Similarly, if you host a party at your house and you don't provide alcohol, but another, if you host a party at your house and you're found liable along with a driver, you and the driver will be both on the hook for the total. So, judgments have gone much higher. This is the case in Florida, a jury verdict where Gabrielle Maynoldi was rendered quadriplegic after a car crash at a party where the school officials and a principal actually attended the party. It's a private school. The verdict came out with $55 million. So that raises the question, too, of a kid's actions can jeopardize parents' assets, their homes, their savings, and their businesses. In the Billy Sen case, the one with the state trooper, Ellen Engelhardt, the car he was driving at the time was registered as a family business, so that brought into question whether that family business is now on the hook for the damages as well. So other implications, athletics, the MIA says that a student shall not use or consume beverage containing alcohol. There's minimum penalties of 25% of the season. The school can go beyond that, right? Which can interfere with school traditions, such as the case was in Maynard, where the Thanksgiving football game was canceled because of the party prior to it. So just returning to the Taylor Meyer case, remember I showed the video at the beginning. Her friends had all said that they had learned their lesson. They realized they weren't invincible, that this was a dangerous thing they were doing. This was 2 weeks after that incident. There's a party not far away from the airport where Taylor drowned. A lot of her friends were there. This is 3 weeks later, another party, 5 weeks later, and some of the cars had written testimonials to Taylor. Her mother, Kathy, who had known a lot of these kids, showed up in court as some of those kids who were drinking were busted, and she asked them to return bracelets that they were wearing in memory of Taylor, just to try to drive home the point. So it goes on, and this is a year ago. So what's the problem here? Obviously there's a disconnect. This graph shows students' responses to questions. Have they ever used alcohol in their lifetime? 67% say yes. Have they ever used alcohol in the past 30 days? 42% say yes. Binge drinking, 25% yes. Passenger in the car when the driver had been drinking, a quarter said yes. the survey of the parents in that town about their beliefs about their children and their understanding. Okay? So 89% said my child doesn't use drugs or alcohol regularly. 83% said that my child has never used drugs. 70% said my child has never used alcohol. So obviously the math doesn't equate. There's a disconnect between what the kids say in a survey and what the parents believe. So I guess we would encourage you to communicate with your children honestly. The takeaways from the presentation: kids and parents don't get it. They need to communicate. The bright line in the law, 21 is 21. And really, simply allowing drinking is a crime against serious consequences. And you can refer to our website for more information. I guess I'll pass it off now to our PDA here. If you have any more questions about the civil side of things, then I'll stick around and you can ask them that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Larry Perchik. I'm an assistant district attorney in this county. I work in Woburn District Court, which actually covers the town of Winchester. So if there's an offense in Winchester, likely I would end up hearing about it in Woburn District Court. We've touched a lot tonight so far on mostly the civil side of things, and I can't speak to that with a high level of exactitude, but I can go a bit into the criminal side of things, some of the things that the sergeant may have touched upon or hadn't yet gotten to. But I'll try to be very brief. Firstly, a couple of statistics that were not mentioned in the previous presentation. On a typical weekend, a teenager dies once per hour, one teenager per hour in a car accident. And almost 50% of those accidents typically will involve alcohol. The crime of operating under the influence of an intoxicating liquor, as I come across it in my work from day to day, what does it mean? It's usually proved in one of two ways. The first is that a person operating a motor vehicle does so while impaired by intoxicating liquor. Impairment, in the eyes of criminal law, what it basically means is that there is the potential, only the potential, that somebody's ability to safely operate a car is compromised by their having consumed intoxicating liquors. Doesn't mean that they've actually driven poorly. It just means that they've been drinking to the point that they may drink poorly, that they may drive poorly, and that the cause of their poor driving is their consumption of alcohol. You can also prove intoxication by liquor in criminal court by a breathalyzer test. If somebody registers a blood alcohol level of 0.08 or greater, they're considered intoxicated in the eyes of the law. But it's something very different for your high school students. If you're under 21, it's not 0.08, it's 0.02. So the previous presentation mentioned gold line, under 21 or 21 and over. And I think that demarcation there helps clarify just how great the distinction that criminal law will make between people under 21 and those that are 21 and older. Additionally, drivers that are under 21 have no prior record. If they refuse to take the breath test, just the refusal of the test, regardless of what your result would have been, that results in a 3 years plus 180-day loss of license. Okay, that's your teenager who no longer has use of their motor vehicle. Now, as for the offense of a minor purchasing alcohol or an adult purchasing alcohol for a minor, what that encompasses is that a person under 21 is not allowed to purchase or attempt to purchase or induce another to purchase, try to get their older friend to buy it for them, or a cousin or a relative. And they cannot alter an ID to purchase alcohol. That all results, or can result, I should say, in a $300 fine as well as a 180-day loss of a driver's license. Both the sergeant and the previous presentation began to mention furnishing alcohol to minors. I should say they mentioned in great depth furnishing alcohol to minors. But I want to touch a little bit on what criminal law looks at when it considers the word furnishing. What does it mean to furnish? Because it doesn't just mean that I'm handing a beer bottle to a younger guest at my home. It's not limited to that. It can be supplying, it can be giving, providing to, or most vaguely, it can be just allowing someone to drink. Allowing someone to drink in your house can be as simple as opening up your liquor cabinet and saying, look at this incredible antique bottle of tequila that I picked up. It's 50 years old and worth X amount of dollars. If you do that, it's possible that a judge or a jury may ultimately construe that as providing alcohol to a minor. So I think the lesson there is be extremely careful. I have to steal the line of the night here, but parents, not pals. There's also all the collateral effects of underage drinking, and they're very dire. 183,000, or 37% of rapes and sexual assault involve alcohol use by the perpetrator. There's also a statistic that college binge drinkers are 2.7 times more likely to engage in unwanted sexual intercourse. And 95% of other acts of violence on college campuses are alcohol-related. Just a few points as I wrap up here. Actually, just one major one. This is something that struck me today when I was in district court. Somebody came in today to court and he had a very, very old, minimal criminal record, which you don't see often in district court. Oftentimes when we have somebody come through our doors, they're a repeat offender or a frequent flyer. We see them all the time. Sometimes I'm on a first-name basis with them, unfortunately. But this particular gentleman that came in today had a criminal record with only 1 or 2 offenses on it. And both of them were from the year 1990, 22 years ago. And this guy was, I'd say, probably in, be careful, but I'd say he's probably middle-aged, probably in his 40s at that point. And nothing, not a speck on his criminal record since the year 1990. What did he do? He had an OUI, operating under the influence offense, from 1990. And his reason for being in court today, he wanted to do what's called sealing the record, sealing his record. Because he's had so much trouble throughout the last 22 years, even though he's committed no additional offenses. And he was, I think, 17 or 18 years old when he had this initial offense. He's had this incredible degree of difficulty in certain life areas, particularly looking for work, applying to schools, applying for special programs, applying for loans. The list goes on. And all he had was this simple operating under the influence offense. So he was in court this morning to try to seal his own records. Now, what an employer or potential lender would see when somebody's record's been sealed, if you do a criminal background check on the person, the record is sealed, they'll get a message back that says something like this. It says, this person's criminal background has been sealed. It doesn't say it doesn't exist. It simply says it's been sealed. And depending on what the guy has in his past, that may look even worse than what's actually on the criminal record. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But this is a lousy set of decisions this person made as a youngster, as a teenager, 17 or 18 years old. He's walking into my court 22 years later, trying to get that monkey off his back. And even if it goes all well for him, he seals his record today in court, and no longer can an employer see what he may have done, what he did do, what he was convicted of 22 years ago. The monkey's not really off his back. Now it just says his record's sealed. And if that doesn't raise a couple eyebrows, if that doesn't raise suspicion, I don't know what does. So this is a problem that if you do it once, or if a young person does it once, so early on in life, it really does stay with them. You can't drive that point home enough. So it's something to be so cautious about. Maybe you do have to be the stickler parent, but that's really the reality of the situation, especially in the eyes of the law.